The squad car rolled up just as my children's laughter echoed across the still morning lake. My daughter froze mid-splash, her small hand gripping her brother's arm in sudden fear. Karen Whitfield stood at the shoreline, arms crossed, her face twisted with smug satisfaction. She had called the police on my own children, swimming on water we legally owned. My heart pounded as the officer stepped out, sunglasses reflecting the glittering surface behind him. "This is Karen's lake," she announced loudly, as if repeating it would make it true. I felt my jaw tighten, fists clenching the folded deed I always carried with me. 3 months earlier, we had moved here seeking peace after years of military relocations. Karen ran the homeowners association like a personal kingdom, ruling through fear and intimidation. She had fined us twice already. Once for a mailbox color, once for grass height. Now she stood pointing at my children, screaming about trespassing on her precious lake. "Officer!" ended, her voice sharp enough to cut through the warm air. My son looked up at me, eyes wide. Trouble. I knelt beside him, whispering reassurance even as my own hands trembled with anger. The officer raised a hand toward Karen, signaling her to pause before saying anything else. "Ma'am," proving this lake belongs to the homeowners association. Karen's smile faltered slightly, replaced by a flicker of uncertain hesitation in her eyes. "It's always been our lake," she insisted, though her voice lost some earlier confidence. I reached into my jacket pocket, pulling out the certified property deed we owned. "Officer, that land, purchased with our home last spring." The officer's eyebrows rose slightly as he studied the official document I had handed him. Neighbors began gathering nearby, drawn by the flashing lights and Karen's escalating shouting voice. Among them stood Diane, our kind neighbor, recording everything carefully with her phone. She had warned us about Karen's controlling behavior since the very first week we arrived. "She does this to everyone," Diane had whispered once, eyes filled with quiet frustration. Karen's accusations had never been about rules, only about controlling who belonged here. We were the only black family on this street, and she made that obvious. Every notice she issued seemed to single us out from every other neighboring household. My wife had cried more than once, exhausted from constant unfair scrutiny and harassment. But today, legally owned, something inside me finally shifted completely. I would not let her humiliate my children again. Not without real consequences. The officer continued reading, his expression slowly changing from neutral to visibly concerned. "Mrs. This deed clearly states the lake is private, owned by this family." Karen's face reddened, disbelief flashing across features that had always looked so certain. "That's impossible," she snapped, though her voice now wavered with growing nervous uncertainty. The crowd murmured, neighbors who had trusted Karen completely. My daughter tugged my sleeve, asking quietly if we could still keep swimming today. I smiled gently, promising her everything would be perfectly fine very soon now. The officer turned toward Karen, his tone firm yet carefully professional and measured. "Ma'am, passing on someone's private property is a serious legal matter." Karen opened her mouth, then closed it, wouldn't come. For the first time since we arrived. Karen looked genuinely afraid of consequences. I exhaled slowly, feeling years of suppressed anger finally beginning to loosen their grip. This wasn't just about a lake anymore. It was about dignity and long overdue justice. The officer asked Karen to step back while he verified everything through dispatch records. She paced nervously near her golf cart, glancing repeatedly toward the gathering. Whispering crowd. Diane walked closer, gently placing a supportive hand on my shoulder without saying anything. You did nothing wrong, she murmured. Voice steady despite the tense surrounding atmosphere. My wife arrived moments later, sprinting from our porch after hearing the commotion outside. Her eyes scanned the scene quickly, relief flooding her face once she saw us safe. What happened? She asked breathlessly. Pulling our children into a protective, trembling embrace. I explained everything calmly, watching anger and disbelief mix across her exhausted features. This wasn't the first confrontation, but it felt different. Heavier. Nor. Karen had targeted us relentlessly since the day our moving truck first arrived. She claimed our porch swing violated aesthetic guidelines that applied to absolutely no one else. She fined us for a flag honoring my years of military service overseas. Each notice felt less like enforcement and more like calculated personal humiliation disguised as policy. The other neighbors stayed silent then, afraid of becoming Karen's next chosen target. But today, something visible in everyone's increasingly skeptical, watchful expressions. An elderly man named Harold stepped forward, holding old photographs yellowed by passing decades. I've lived here 40 years, he said, voice trembling slightly with long suppressed emotion. This lake was always private, deeded to whoever owned this particular lakeside parcel. He handed the officer historical documents proving generations of private ownership before Karen's arrival. Karen's confidence crumbled further, her earlier authority dissolving beneath mounting undeniable evidence everywhere. You're lying, she hissed at Harold, though her voice now sounded desperate, almost pleading. I have nothing to gain, Harold replied calmly. Only truth worth finally protecting. The officer compared both documents carefully, nodding slowly as everything aligned perfectly together. Ma'am. Family's exclusive ownership of the entire lake property. Karen's hands shook as she realized her authority had completely unraveled before everyone watching. She had weaponized the HOA bylaws against us for months without facing any consequences. Now those same bylaws, twisted to harm us, were finally returning to expose her. I felt my daughter's small hand slip back into mine, seeking comfort and reassurance. Daddy, she whispered, eyes still wide with lingering worry. No. Softly. We never were. Diane stepped beside Karen, voice steady despite years of suppressed frustration finally surfacing completely. You've harassed this family since day one, simply because they don't look like you. Karen's jaw tightened, refusing to meet anyone's eyes, refusing to admit obvious truth. I was protecting community standards, she muttered, though nobody around her seemed convinced anymore. Standards that somehow only applied to us, my wife replied, voice sharp and unwavering. The officer cleared his throat, preparing to address the growing tension surrounding everyone present. Mrs. Falsely reporting a crime carries legal penalties you should understand clearly. Karen's face paled. Panic finally replacing the arrogant confidence she had always carried before. She glanced around desperately, searching for support that no longer existed among silent neighbors. For months, certain nobody would ever challenge her authority. Today, and witnesses. That illusion shattered completely before everyone's eyes. I looked at my children, still trembling slightly, and felt resolve hardening within me. This moment wasn't just vindication. It was the beginning of long overdue accountability. I would not let this end quietly. Not after everything she had put us through. The officer turned toward Karen. Clipboard ready. Official now. I'll need to file a report regarding this false trespassing accusation today. Ma'am. Karen's composure finally broke completely. Tears mixing with desperate, scattered attempts at justification. I didn't mean any harm, she stammered, though her history suggested otherwise entirely. Diane stepped forward again, holding her phone displaying months of recorded harassment evidence. This isn't her first incident, she said. Voice calm but unmistakably resolute and clear. She had documented every biased fine, every unfair notice, every targeted confrontation carefully. The officer reviewed the footage, jaw tightening as the pattern became undeniably clear. This appears to be a consistent pattern of targeted harassment against this family specifically. Karen's neighbors now spoke openly, sharing their own troubling experiences with her. One by one. Fines, biased enforcement, and selective intimidation tactics. The HOA board arrived to witness Karen's unraveling authority firsthand. We're launching a full investigation into your conduct as association president, one member announced. Karen's hands trembled as reality finally settled over her like an unbearable, suffocating weight. Everything she had built through fear was collapsing within a single humiliating afternoon. I stood quietly, watching years of frustration finally giving way to long-deserved justice. My wife squeezed my hand, her eyes glistening with relief and overwhelming quiet pride. Our children began smiling again, the earlier fears slowly fading away. Can we swim now? My son asked, looking hopefully toward the sparkling lake water. I laughed softly, the sound feeling foreign after months of constant, simmering tension. Yes, I said. We can swim here whenever we want. Because this is ours. The officer approached, returning our documents with a respectful, almost apologetic nod toward us. I'm sorry for the inconvenience today. Sir. Wrong. Thank you for actually listening instead of assuming the worst. Karen stood alone now, surrounded by neighbors who no longer offered silent support. The HOA board confirmed her removal pending investigation, effective immediately following today's incident. Weeks later, for repeated false reporting and discriminatory harassment patterns, her once pristine reputation crumbled entirely. replaced by community-wide condemnation and quiet relief. Neighbors who had stayed silent now apologized, admitting they had feared speaking up sooner. Diane became a close friend, her courage that day inspiring others to finally speak. Harold's historical photographs were framed and donated, preserving the lake's true origin story. Our family finally felt safe, truly belonging within a community that once rejected us. The lake became a gathering place. Neighbors sharing barbecues, laughter. My children swam freely now, their laughter no longer tinged with fear or hesitation. I often thought back to that morning, remembering how close fear came to silencing us. But truth and quiet resilience had ultimately triumphed over baseless intimidation and bias. Karen's downfall wasn't about revenge, but about restoring fairness within our shared community space. Justice doesn't always arrive instantly, but it arrives when truth refuses to stay hidden. Our family's story became a reminder that standing firm against abuse eventually brings change. Every family deserves peace, dignity, use their given power. That summer, light. It reflected hard-won, lasting justice.